My name is Maren Cole. I'm 35 years old. And I didn't realize my marriage was already cracking until my husband laughed and said something that sounded like a joke, the kind people say when they want applause, not consequences. Every woman notices me, he said, swirling his wine like he was on stage. Honestly, I could replace you in a week. People laughed at first. Nervous, polite laughter. I didn't. We'd been married 7 years. Not a fairy tale, not a disaster. Just a life most people would call comfortable. A decent house, stable jobs, shared routines that ran so smoothly we rarely had to think about them anymore. Grocery lists memorized, coffee orders automatic, conversations predictable. Somewhere along the way, comfort turned into assumption. Social media didn't help. Every photo he posted, gym selfies, casual mirror shots, was met with comments. Compliments from women he barely knew. Fire emojis. You haven't aged a day. Your wife is lucky. He read every single one. At first, it was harmless. Little jokes about still having it, comments about women flirting at the gym, at work, at the coffee shop. I laughed along because pushing back felt unnecessary, and because part of me didn't want to be that wife. But over the past year, the tone changed. Specific names started appearing. Stories told with too much detail. That familiar undertone of, you should be grateful I'm still here. That Friday night, we were out with 2 other couples, our closest friends. The kind who'd known us since college. The kind who'd seen us broke, stressed, exhausted, and still believed in us. Halfway through the second bottle of wine, the conversation turned to marriage. One of the wives talked about how her husband still made her feel chosen after 10 years. Sweet, earnest. Then my husband leaned back in his chair and smiled. I mean, that's nice, he said. But let's be real. The spark fades. Marriage makes people complacent. I kept cutting my chicken. Let him talk. I love her, he continued, gesturing vaguely in my direction without looking at me. But if we're being honest, women still notice me everywhere. Gym, work, even the grocery store. The table shifted. Subtle discomfort. If I wanted to, he added casually, I could replace her in a week. Probably less. Silence. I set my fork down carefully, took a sip of water. You're probably right, I said. He blinked, smiled wider. See? She gets it. I leaned back and spoke quietly. 4 names. Just 4. Soft enough that only our table heard. The color drained from his face. And in that moment, I realized something terrifyingly clear. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done reacting. The silence after I said those 4 names felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. At first, no one spoke. Not our friends, not my husband, even the ambient noise of the restaurant. Clinking glasses, laughter from nearby tables, the hum of Friday night, felt distant, like it belonged to another world we'd just been cut off from. What are you talking about? He finally asked. His voice was sharp now, defensive, too quick. I looked at him calmly, not angry, not smug, just finished pretending. You said you could replace me in a week, I replied. I was just pointing out that you've been preparing for that possibility for months. Our friends stared between us, confused. One of the wives frowned, like she was trying to solve a puzzle that suddenly didn't feel hypothetical anymore. You're being dramatic, my husband said, forcing a laugh that landed flat. Those are just people I know. The first one, I said, not raising my voice. You've been messaging for 6 months. His jaw tightened. You met her for coffee twice, lunch twice. One of those times you told me you were meeting your cousin. Across the table, someone inhaled sharply. I can have female friends, he snapped. Of course you can, I said, but friends don't get deleted message threads and late-night check-ins when your wife's asleep. His hands were shaking now. He tried to hide them under the table. The second woman, I continued, works at your gym. You text her after 10 p.m. I've seen the notifications light up your phone when you thought I was asleep. One of the husbands leaned back slowly, eyes wide. No one interrupted me. The third one is your coworker, the one you said was just helping you with a project. You stayed late 6 times last month. I called your office one of those nights. They said you'd left 2 hours earlier. This is insane, he said, but his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I paused, then said the last name. The fourth one is my younger sister. Someone actually gasped. My husband's face went from pale to flushed in seconds. Nothing happened, he said quickly. Too quickly. With any of them. We just talked. Maybe, I said. Maybe nothing physical happened. But here's what did happen. I leaned forward slightly. You spent 7 months building escape routes, testing interest, making sure you had options before you decided whether I was still worth staying married to. He opened his mouth. And you were careless, I added. You did it on devices and accounts I could access. You went through my phone? He shot back, trying to grab the narrative. I pay for the phone plan, I said evenly. I can see every number, every timestamp, every pattern. I saw when your behavior changed, when you started staying late, when you started dressing better for work, when you started going to the gym twice a day. No one was looking at me anymore. They were all looking at him. So, when you say you could replace me in a week, I finished, you're not wrong. You've been auditioning replacements for months. His chair scraped loudly as he stood. I'm not doing this here, he said. Where would you like to? I asked. At home, in front of a lawyer? He grabbed his jacket and walked out. Just like that. Left me sitting there with an untouched plate of pasta and 4 people who didn't know where to put their eyes. One of the husbands spoke first. I'm so sorry. Did you know? I asked. Any of you? They all shook their heads. One of the wives started crying. Especially your sister, she whispered. Yeah, I said quietly. That one surprised me too. I stayed, finished my meal. Not because I was strong, but because I refused to leave like I'd done something wrong. The house was dark when I got home. Not the peaceful kind of dark, the deliberate kind. No lamps on, no television murmuring in the background, just silence pressed tight against the walls. He was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, the bottle open on the coffee table like he'd been waiting. Or rehearsing. We need to talk, he said. I didn't turn on the lights. I set my keys down slowly, then sat in the chair across from him. Now you want to talk, I replied. You humiliated me, he said. His voice wasn't angry, it was wounded, in front of our friends. I stated facts, I said. You humiliated yourself by creating them. Nothing happened, he insisted again. I swear, nothing physical. I watched him carefully. You lied to me for months, I said. Why would today be the day you suddenly start telling the truth? He looked down at his glass. For a moment, I almost believed him. Because it's true, he said finally. I liked the attention. I liked feeling wanted, but I never crossed that line. You crossed it emotionally, I said. 4 times. One of them with my sister. That made him flinch. She came on to me, he said quickly. I didn't pursue her. But you didn't stop it, I replied. You kept responding. You let it continue. Silence. When did it start? I asked. He hesitated. Too long. 3 months ago, he said. At your parents' anniversary dinner. The memory hit me hard. I'd been outside helping my dad carry boxes from the garage. 20 minutes. That's all it took. What did she say to you? I asked. She said you didn't appreciate me, he muttered, that you'd stopped noticing. I stared at him. And instead of talking to your wife, I said slowly, you started collecting backups. I didn't think of it like that. How did you think of it? He didn't answer. We slept in separate rooms that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments I'd dismissed. Late nights. Short answers. The quiet shift from partnership to performance. By morning, something had settled inside me. I wasn't deciding whether to save my marriage. I was deciding whether it deserved saving. I confronted my sister before I confronted anyone else. Not because she mattered more than my marriage, but because her betrayal cut deeper, sharper, in a way I hadn't prepared for. She answered the phone on the second ring, cheerful at first. That vanished the moment she heard my voice. How long? I asked. Silence. That's not an answer, I said. 3 months, she whispered. Nothing happened, I swear. I don't care what didn't happen, I replied. I care that you crossed a line you knew you were never supposed to approach. She cried, apologized, said she was lonely, said she felt invisible too, said she didn't think it would go this far. It didn't go far, I said. You went far enough. I hung up knowing something permanent had just broken. Next, I messaged the other women. Short, direct, no emotion. Stay away from my husband. If you contact him again, I will make sure your partners see the messages you sent. 2 responded immediately with apologies, long explanations, boundary confusion, regret. The gym woman tried to pretend they were just workout buddies. I sent her a screenshot. She stopped replying. My husband watched all of this from a distance. Quiet, smaller somehow, as if consequences had finally made him aware of his own size. Counseling was my condition for not filing immediately. Individual therapy, couples therapy, no shortcuts. He agreed quickly, not because he was brave, but because he was scared. The therapist didn't take sides. She asked questions that forced honesty instead of performance. Why did you seek validation elsewhere? She asked him. He talked about aging, about social media, about feeling desirable when everything else felt routine. All understandable feelings. But you handled those feelings by betraying trust, she said. That's the part we can't ignore. Then she turned to me. Why did you stay silent when you first noticed something was wrong? I didn't have a clean answer. pride, fear, hope. I'd noticed the shifts months earlier. I could have confronted him then, forced the truth sooner. Instead, I gathered evidence. Prepared. You both protected yourselves instead of the marriage, the therapist observed. She wasn't wrong. 6 weeks of sessions didn't fix us. They clarified us. After one particularly brutal appointment, we sat in the parking lot in silence. I don't know if I can do this, he said finally. The therapy? I asked. Being married to someone who knows what I did, he admitted. You look at me like you're waiting. For what? For me to fail again. I thought about that. So what are you saying? I think we're done, he said quietly. We just didn't want to admit it. He was right. Love doesn't survive avoidance. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Once we stopped pretending, everything moved quickly, almost efficiently. No screaming, no drawn-out battles, just paperwork, timelines, and the quiet dismantling of a life we'd built together. I kept the house, not out of spite, out of practicality. It was mine emotionally long before it was legally divided. He took some furniture, half our savings, his car, fair, clean, final. He moved out within 2 weeks, stayed with a friend at first, then found an apartment across town. The house felt strange after that, quieter, emptier, but also honest. I repainted the bedroom, rearranged the living room, donated things we'd chosen together but that no longer felt like me. Small acts of reclaiming space. My sister and I don't speak anymore. My parents tried to fix it. A family dinner, neutral ground, forced politeness. We sat across from each other like strangers with shared history. Some betrayals don't heal just because time passes. Therapy helped. I kept going even after the divorce was final, not to understand what he did, but to understand why I tolerated silence for so long. I've been on a few dates, nothing serious. Starting over at 35 is strange. Everyone carries something. Everyone's cautious. But there's clarity too. No illusions left to protect. Our friends stayed. Actually, they became closer. Protective. They check in, include me. I'm the single friend now. An adjustment, but a manageable one. I heard he's seeing someone. One of the women from the gym. I hope it works out. Not because I'm generous, but because I want his choices to mean something. I want him to find whatever he was searching for while dismantling our marriage. Sometimes I think back to that restaurant. The joke, the silence, the names. It wasn't my proudest moment. Public exposure rarely is. But it was honest. And honesty was what our marriage lacked most. People always show you who they are, if you're willing to watch instead of explain. The house is quiet tonight. I'm sitting on the back porch, watching the sun dip low, the air cooling just enough to feel like relief. I don't feel happy. Not yet, but I feel peaceful. And that's enough to build from.